Welcome, welcome. Well, like Taka said, we are in week 3 of a series of teachings we are calling Prepare Him Room. And I figured I'd give you a quick summarization as my friend Harold moves this piano. Thank you so much. I might trip over this. If I do, it is what it is. But it is a series of teachings about how easy it is to get consumed with consumerism, to get consumed with how busy and hectic our lives can be, consumed with how thinking about the future, and how we just need to take some time and prepare room, prepare space in our lives for God to speak to us and speak through us. And being here on a Sunday is evidence that you are doing that. You're like, I'm preparing room for God to speak to me. But Taka always talks about how Sunday mornings are a great time for us as a team to come together, to huddle, to game plan. And then Monday through Saturday is where we live it out. So it's pretty exciting. So just to summarize the past couple weeks and what you're getting yourself into for today. But for those of you who don't know, which is probably a majority of you, my name is Corey Michael Moore. I came to California from outside of Chicago in July. And let me tell you, this is a rough Christmas for me. It's really tough weather. I don't know. I had to put on a long sleeve shirt this morning because I was like, it's 45. What is this? This isn't the Christmas I signed up for. No, it has been so nice to live in California and be like, see people posting about being in the middle of a blizzard and be like, well, I'm having a t-shirt on because it's 80 degrees literally. It's crazy. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Let's just take a moment. Seriously, I came here I'm so thankful I came here with my beautiful wife who is somewhere in here. You probably see her because she's got a big belly. She got a big belly because there's a baby in there. Not trying to make fun of her weight. She really just has a large stomach, which, to be fair, I'm really upset about because he should have been born a week ago. And I'm getting kind of like, I'm telling you, like preparing to speak in front of people is like kind of like a little bit of a stress. But thinking about every phone call and every text I get from my wife, it could be her saying, I'm going into labor. It's just even more stress. I had it on top of it. Like the other night, I was at work, and she called me at like 8:15, and we closed the shop down at 8 o'clock. And I was like, this is it. This is it. I'm shaking as I'm like, hello? She's like, hey? Oh, hey? That's how she really talks. She has such a soft voice. Thank you for telling me to use her real voice. Just to give you perspective. She has such a beautiful voice, but I was like, so what's up? She's like, nothing, just calling to see when you're coming home. Like, no, don't do that to me. You don't get the stress. If I was pregnant, I would have gone into labor that second. It was so much. And to be honest, this guy's a little bit of a jerk already. He's being a little bit selfish because so stressful while I'm doing this. And I had a bunch of jokes planned, and I wanted to instill in you my fatherly wisdom this morning, but he took that from me because he's not even here yet. So I'll save the jokes about him and jokes and the fatherly wisdom for next time, But it's just not how I expected it to go down. Just like when we found out that she was pregnant, was not expected. It was so shocking and so fun, but here I am in the midst of like, this isn't what I expected. I wanted to have this baby on a Sunday or before Sunday so I wouldn't have to think, is she going to go into labor in the middle of the message? I'm just going to drop the microphone. It's a little bit of a stress and not what I had anticipated. But I feel like that's what has happened so many times in my life. I feel like when I went to school, I graduated, I wanted to walk across the stage and I don't know if it was video games, I don't know if it was movies or TV shows or something, but I wanted to be like, I now know how to do my taxes. I now know how to budget. Because I've successfully completed school, I have all these real-world skills. And here I am. But then reality hits, and I'm kind of like, just another day. Just another day. Or I've bought so many items from Amazon, and I'm like, all right, here's my which actually I'm going to pause for a second. What this feels like, not having this baby right now, is like I clicked 2-day shipping on Amazon. They're like, we'll get it to you in 2 days. And then 5 days later, I'm like, where's this thing at? And they're like, oh, yeah, we sent it to New York. Sorry. It's coming. It'll be here at some point. And I'm like, okay. But I've ordered things off of Amazon, and I'm like, 2-day shipping. And it's supposed to get here. Oh, my gosh, what? Oh, I finally have it. I wanted to have this feeling of satisfaction. And it's just kind of like, I am here. This is all right. This is fine. Yeah, I have my thing now. But When I so much wanted to find my purpose in life, where I'm like, God, especially when I was younger, I'm still young, but when I was younger, I'd be like, God, what am I here for? I don't know what I expected. I don't know why I expected this, but for some reason, I thought I would go into an attic or something and like be like digging through and find this big tome, this big book, and like wipe the dust off, open it up, and like the beam of light would show and be like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Or I'd be walking in Newport Beach and be like, oh, there's a beam of light from the sky into this building. I'll walk in here. You guys hiring? And they're like, yes, we are. And that's never worked out the way that I've kind of expected, anticipated, or really wanted. But it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's happened in like those kind of circumstances, and I've seen it happen in more real life situations. So my grandma, when I was a kid, was like my best friend. I loved my grandma. She would take me to Barnes and Nobles and Borders, rest in peace, and buy me books all the time. And we'd like go hang out and just read our books. And she'd give me coffee, which was like milk with like a splash of coffee in it. But it was so fun. And so we'd hang out all the time. But when I was in 8th grade, suddenly, she's like 60 years old. Suddenly she gets sick and passes away within months. That's not what I planned. This isn't what I expected. Why would I anticipate losing my grandma so young? Or I think of when I was a youth leader. I'm no longer a youth leader, but I was at one point. And I had a student who he's still such a good guy, still such a good friend. But he shot me a text one night. And the text was, hey, can you be praying? My sister is having an asthma attack. And I said, my wife has asthma. Man, did not plan this out. My wife has asthma. It's not a big deal. All you have to do is do like your and you're fine. That's what I expected to happen. Then an hour later, he gives me a call, and he's like, hey, we're at the hospital. Can you come? And soon after that, his sister passed. This is not what we expected. Not what I wanted for that family, and I cannot imagine being a mom who's it's not in the plan. This isn't in the playbook. This isn't what I anticipated. The heartbreak that was felt in that she still feels. To be a brother and have to be there while your sister's having an asthma attack. Like the thought of these things just sucks. But we've all been there. We've all been in the spot where maybe you weren't the one diagnosed, but you're close to somebody who was. Maybe you're not currently like, man, this is the hardest time of my life, but you've gone through some hard stuff. Or maybe you're not currently saying, what am I going to do to pay this month's rent? Maybe this is your first Christmas without somebody, or maybe it's your 10th, but the pain is still real. We've all been in that spot where the not ideal, not comfortable, not fun thing is happening. This isn't how I planned it to go. And around this time of year, we hear the phrase a lot, peace on earth. And it's taken from this concept that when Jesus was born, the angels came and they sang to these shepherds and they said, peace on earth. I kind of want to just talk about that for a little bit today. And I want to start by saying I can look at the story of Jesus, and I can look at the time and the life he lived and go, man, that's so beautiful. God is flesh. God is man. He came and he's born next to sheep and cows, and it was so humble. And then he lived his life so counterculturally. Wow, how cool. But let's talk about what that meant for the people of Israel. So, why did I close this? This is a terrible call. What the situation was I'm going to do that every single time I drink, just obnoxiously sigh like that. Which that's what our dog does when he tries to get our attention. We have the best dog in the world. He'll just like come up to you and goes, so that's what I'm going to do to get your attention today. So during the life of Jesus, the people of Israel were taken over by the Roman government. And the Roman government was pretty oppressive, but it was the worst thing about being under the Roman government is they would take people from, like they'd take a Jewish person and have them be over the Jewish people. And so the Jewish people, there'd be like tax collectors, and the tax collectors would be like, so how much do I charge my fellow Jewish people? And the Romans would say, 2 coins. Not exactly 2 coins, just go with me here. Use for the numbers. And go, all right, sweet, you all owe me 3 coins. And so it became this thing where not only were they taken over by a government that they couldn't really trust, but even their neighbors, their loved ones, and sometimes their friends would be people who would betray them just to get more money. It's just not an ideal, not comfortable scenario, but the thing was that they had hope. The thing was they had this hope. They had this promise a couple hundred years earlier. There's a prophet of God who said, there will be a Messiah, an anointed one by God, who will bring freedom, who will bring peace, and he'll fight your battles. And there was this hope that this Messiah was going to come at any moment. Every time they were in these like oppressive situations, they'd go, but soon, the anointed one from God will be here, and he'll fight for our freedom. And the thing about this Messiah, the promise was that he would come from the bloodline of David, which was 1,000 years before Jesus. So let's just go here. I'm trying to think of how this would be. Jesus, I don't know. Just go with me. Jesus here, prophecy here, David over here. 1,000 years before Jesus, David was the king. And now we probably heard of David and Goliath, David and Saul, David and the Philistines. He did a lot of stuff. He was really cool. But David was basically like Abraham Lincoln meets Captain America. He was this dude who was like the epitome of like, oh, he is an Israel. He's a Jewish man. He is a fighter. He's a warrior. He's noble. He loves God. He is like every little kid is like, I want to be like David, King David. He was the king. And even I'm kind of like, dog, he's pretty cool. I want to be like Captain America and Abraham Lincoln. And so time and time again, David would fight the giant and win. David would fight the Philistines and win. God was with David, and it showed this like, to get your freedom, you had to have this leader like David, who is a warrior. And there were enemies of God, and we were going to have to fight them and conquer them in order to find our freedom. So this buildup, this hope that they have is in this Messiah who's going to come from this Abraham Lincoln, Captain America, but he's going to be like the next level, like Abraham Lincoln, Captain America, Luke Skywalker. Like, how do you make these two better? Add the Force and add a lightsaber. And like Jesus, or the Messiah was going to be like the next thing. He was the hope. So they're hyped. They start hearing about this Jesus guy, and they're like, all right, let's get around him. And what they wanted to hear was, hey, you know those Romans? Yeah, I hate them too. Let's grab our swords and go fight them. And they'd be like, yes, been waiting for this moment. I'll fight for my freedom any day of the week. But what they got was, hey, instead of hating these Romans, let's love these Romans. Instead of fighting them, let's serve them. How frustrating that would be to be like, wait, I thought we were going to fight for our freedom. I thought, finally, peace on earth. I thought that was going to look like we were going to be at peace. But what you're telling me, if I'm going to read between the lines here, what I'm hearing is that, hey, your situation isn't going to practically change. Instead of fighting and getting rid of the people that you hate, it's time to love those people. I know it doesn't look like there's much hope in that. That doesn't look super ideal. Oh, but serve them when it's not convenient to do it. Now, if I were to be honest, I could see that being pretty disappointing to hear. To hear my situation isn't changing, but my perspective needs to change in the midst of it. So what do we do? What do we do when we wake up in the morning and all we want to do is go to bed? Seriously, what do we do when we're like, I don't want to do this? This isn't fun. This isn't what I had planned. I'm a little bit depressed if I were to be honest with myself. What do we do when you get the unexpected news? when the not ideal is happening. When you said, God, I thought peace on earth was going to look like this. And like the Israelites who, Jesus, you want me to love my enemy? You're talking about peace on earth. Peace on earth, I still see poverty. God, Jesus, peace on earth, I still see homelessness. I still see starvation around the world. Peace on earth, there is war happening. Peace on earth, there are people going into religious worship centers in public spaces with the sole intent of taking lives. Peace on earth, there are fires that are consuming businesses and people's livelihood and people's lives. Peace on earth, this isn't what we expected. And while I was preparing for this, I thought of this story. And I love to exaggerate stories, and I love to get really animated. But I figured it would be better delivered if I read it. Mr. Spafford was a successful lawyer and businessman in Chicago. He had a lovely wife, Anna, and 5 children. Their young son died of pneumonia in 1871, and in that same year, much of their business was lost in the Great Chicago Fire. On November 21st, 1873, a French ocean liner was crossing the Atlantic from the U.S. to Europe with 313 passengers on board. Among those passengers were Mrs. Spafford and their 4 daughters. Although Mr. Spafford had planned to go with his family, he found that it was necessary to stay in Chicago to help solve an unexpected business problem. He told his wife that he would join her and the children in a few days because his plan was just to take the next ship. About 4 days into crossing the Atlantic, their ship collided with a powerful, iron-hulled Scottish ship. Suddenly, all those on board were in grave danger. Anna hurriedly brought her 4 children to the deck. She knelt there with Margaret, Lee, Annie, Bessie, and Tanetta and prayed that God would spare them if that would be his will. Within approximately 12 minutes, the ship slipped beneath the dark waters of the Atlantic, carrying 226 of the passengers, including the 4 Spafford children. A sailor rowing a boat over the spot where the ship went down spotted a woman floating on a piece of wreckage. It was Anna. She was still alive. He pulled her into the boat, and they were picked up by another larger vessel, which 9 days later landed them in Wales. From there, she wired her husband a message which began, "Saved alone, what shall I do?" Mr. Spafford later framed the telegram and placed it in his office. So Mr. Spafford booked passage on the next available ship and left to join his grieving wife. While he was on this journey, he wrote this song. When peace, like a river, attendeth my way. When sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, you've taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Now, there's no outside reason. There's nothing about his situation that would position this guy to be like, it is well with my soul. When peace is around me, it is well with my soul. Even in the hardest times, whatever I'm facing, it is well with my soul. No item he had, no circumstances positioned him to do that. But he chose to search for peace even in the hardest moments. He positioned himself by singing a song to go, I'm in the middle of the hardest part of my life. God, give me peace. There's a concept in the scriptures that goes, how many days has worrying added to your life? None. How many moments has regret given back to you? 0. And in the midst of our situations, and you may be out here and be like, this is totally fine. I'm not going through anything difficult at all, and I love it. But you will at some point be in a position where status or money or all the things in your life may not be enough. So today, I would love to take a moment and stand with me, if you will. The message isn't done. I just want to take a minute, just shift our perspective. Because oftentimes, it is not the situation that adds the stress, that adds the anxiety to our lives, but it's our perspective of the situation. So this morning, let's just take 3 minutes. Stand with me, if you will, and we're going to sing this song that is 150 years old, but just to shift our perspective of the situations around us.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it is well with my soul. My sin, oh the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin not in part, but the whole is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. And it is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. And it is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. And it is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. And it is well, it is well with my soul.
Actually, if we could just sing that first verse one more time. Sing that first verse one more time.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my Lord thou hast taught me to say, it is well, it
You guys can go ahead and sit down. I love that song because I love that song. I love that song because 150 years almost later, I can still sing that song and I'm refreshed by it. It's possibly one of the most famous songs in the history of Christianity. And it's crazy to me because if this guy who lost everything spent the rest of his life writing poems and saying, God, why have you forsaken me? Why did you take this from me? I would look at that guy and say, I kind of get it. You were in a not ideal scenario. What you were facing was bigger than anything else I could imagine. I get it. But it's crazy that he didn't sit there. He said, I'm going to search for peace myself. I'm going to sing songs to remind me that it doesn't matter the storms around me, my perspective, my focus is on you. But he went even a step beyond that. He wrote a song that has impacted millions of people. Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the children of God. And just like my son will be as ruggedly good looking as I am, so we are such images of God when we bring peace. When we love, when we feel alone, when we give, when we need so much. When we go out of our way to bring peace to other people, we bear the image of God. I think of Taka and Biggie and Temo. Biggie over here, I don't know. I don't know. You're in here. I know. I saw you earlier this morning. But they went to Tijuana and they went to an orphanage and they were cutting hair and they were loving these kids. And Biggie I was talking to Biggie about it last week and he was like, those kids were like heroes. Their situation was not ideal, but as I was cutting their hair and the smiles that were on their face, I was so filled with joy. I was giving to them, but oh my gosh, I was receiving. And I'm not talking about that we should give so that we get, but oh my gosh, it's crazy. The spirit, and we've all probably, a lot of us have been there. There's a spiritual, divine, mystical way that when you give, when you are in need, you so receive. I think about Sergio and Patty was posting a ton about it. I don't know if she's in here. And the downtown Santa Ana CrossFit guys, while there were so many fires consuming lives and businesses so close to home, workouts that they were doing, they were donating money to help the restoration of them. I think about Raphael and Kathy, Raphael's a teacher and he has this little 9-year-old girl in his class who just lost her dad. And he's not just sitting there going, that's really hard. I'm gonna let you pass a little bit on your grades. I understand. He's saying, small group, church, how can we gather around this family and love them in their time of most need? He's buying a Switch they're buying a Switch for this little girl, a Nintendo Switch, but not because like that's gonna solve the problem, because oh my gosh, that little girl losing her dad is pain that nobody should experience. But they're buying a Switch not to say this will fix it, but to say, hey, we see you. We love you in the midst of your hard times right now. We want to be there with you. Blessed are the peacemakers because they are the children of God. My prayer is that when people pray, God, where are you? God, where are you when I lost this family member? When this shooting happened? God, where are you when the fires consumed this? God, where are you when I see starving children all across the world? When I see homelessness? My prayer is that we would be the answer to that prayer. That we'd be the next person knocking on the door saying, I want to be there in the midst of this with you. That the Christ in us as the church wouldn't be waiting saying, all right, when's the sky gonna part? God, we're praying, we're waiting for you to do something, but that we would take action. That the Christ in us, that the church would be a part of the solution for poverty, for homelessness, for starvation. That the Christ in us would be there loving people who've lost everything. That as we are so desperate for peace ourselves, that we would be so generous with what we have. Jesus talked about one of his last things he did with his followers is he said, all right, here's some bread and here's some wine. We have grape juice. But he said, eat this, drink this, and remember me. In a minute, we're gonna do that. And we're gonna remember the way that Jesus lived his life. We're gonna remember that, we're gonna think through the lens of what would Jesus do if Jesus were me? How do I love? How do I bear the image of God everywhere I go? How do I make peace to everybody around me in my daily, because there's gonna be moments where it's like, hey, we have this gift wrapping thing. Hey, we have this event. But nobody looked at Raphael and said, you should be a peacemaker. You know what you should do? You should buy a Switch. We should buy a Switch for this girl. No, that's how he lives his life as a peacemaker. So while we are in the midst of our own things, in the midst of our chaos, praying and singing songs to remind ourselves that God, peace is still achievable, even in the craziest of storms. Pray that we would be actively making peace for the people around us.